welcome to Spiritual Awakening Radio. Today is program number 645 in the HealthyLife.net CHSR radio series. This program also serves as a podcast, a Sant Mat satsang podcast for those who download the MP3 version of this program each week. An alternative or second opinion, voice for the Sant Mat tradition, the path of the masters. For some, this may be the only satsang spiritual meetup, if they're living in a location where locally there is no local meeting to attend. It's great doing this program, nice sharing this information. Sometimes they delve into history of the Sant tradition and delve into subjects you may not hear anyplace else, and readings from books you may not otherwise hear quoted elsewhere. I want to begin by sharing a poem by one of my favorite all-time, ultimate favorite saints and mystics, Sant Namdev, and then share a short article called A History of Simran Practice in the Sant Tradition, the repetition of sacred names, which will address one of the sacred names Namdev uses in his mystic poetry. And then we'll devote the rest of the program to all poetry of Sant Namdev. This is a poem of Namdev titled, "The One Manifests in the Many." The One manifests in the many, pervading everywhere. Wherever I look, there he is. Illusions or mayas, diverse forms, have so bewitched the world that few know it is he. All is God, there is nothing but God. One string holds hundreds and thousands of beads. God is the thread which runs through them all. Waves, foam, and bubbles cannot be separated from water. This illusion is the play of the Supreme Lord. On reflection, you will not find it different from him. You have taken fleeting phantoms and ephemeral desires as true. My Master has awakened right thoughts in me, thus purifying the mind and subduing it. Reflect on God's creation, says Namdev, and realize, pervading everyone and everything is the Lord alone. Another mystic poem of Sant Namdev. Always be in rapport with the Supreme Lord and enjoy true contentment. This is the state of ineffable serenity. There is no peace except in the name of the Lord. Meditate on it with one-pointed attention. Experience the state of superconsciousness where the Lord's love surges, and you will see your own form in each particle of the creation. O Namdev, the Lord will make the pupil of your eye his home, and your eye will expand to contain the entire universe. Poems of Sant Namdev ahead, but first a bit about the repetition of names of God. A history of Simran practice in the Sant tradition, the path of the masters, the many names of the one nameless God, or Anami. Simran is a word that means remembrance, as in remembering the Supreme Being by repeating his name. The Nameless God has been given many names over the centuries. There are countless divine names used as mantras or sacred words of remembrance in various schools of spirituality. In the Dadu Panth, that sacred name of God at the highest level is Satya-Raam, or True God. The name Ram was very frequently mentioned in the hymns of Guru Kabir, Sant Namdev, and other classic Sants of India. Some receive a single name, others a longer mantra phrase. Some are initiated with the 5 names, or panch naam, consisting of 5 sacred names of God. These are revealed at the time of one's initiation into the meditation practice of Sant Mat, known as Surat Shabd Yoga, the attention faculty of the soul focused upon and absorbed into the divine light and sound of God. These same 5 names have been used for centuries in certain branches of Sant Mat connected with Kabir and Sant Dharam Das, Sant Dariya Sahib of Bihar, Sant Tulsi Sahib of Hathras, and Sant Radhasoami Sahib. Others have been given 5 Sufi or mystical Islamic names of God at the time of their initiation into Surat Shabd Yoga meditation. These 5 Sufi or Persian names have the same essential meaning as the 5 Indian names used in some forms of Sant Mat, and as with the Indian names also correspond to 5 basic inner spiritual regions or heavens. In one of the Jewish Gnostic paths of antiquity, a group known as the Sethians, the Sethian Gnostics, also had a 5-named or panch naam mantra approach, only with 5 Hebrew names that have been found in Coptic language texts of Egypt. Those were also associated with certain heavenly regions. Others are given the name of the Most High God RADHASOAMI in the Sant Mat tradition, Radhasoami, which means literally Soul Lord or Lord of the Soul. The name Radhasoami is associated with the 8th plane of consciousness, to use in Simran practice along one's journey through all of the various states and stages within during meditation. A few Sant Mat lineages use a 2-syllabled sacred word revealed at the time of initiation, and it represents a name for the soundless Supreme Being. You notice I don't mention what all of these names are because they are, for the most part, secret names. Radhasoami is in the public domain. Ram, also Satya-Raam, are in the public domain. Those 5 Sethian Hebrew names, you can find those online, mentioned in some of the Gnostic Gospels. But for the most part, the mantras that the Master gives you are to be kept secret and are only given to initiates, along with other meditation techniques, instruction on how to use them in meditation practice. Those are kept secret and on a need-to-know basis as part of a complete package of training in the ways of Surat Shabd Yoga meditation. Many names have been used by various saints of the past, various saints or masters of the past. Param Atma, Hari, Alak, Allah, Ram, or Rama, Rahim, Agim, Parush Atma, Kuda, Gobind, Panduranga, Pandhari, Vitala, Narayana, Vithoba, Sat Parush, etc. Some of these names are used by Hindu paths as well and have different meanings. They may turn up in various Hindu scriptures. As Sant Dariya Sahib of Bihar once said, consider the 4 meanings of the name Ram. The first Ram is our inner self. The second Ram is said to be another level of the self. The third one lived in Hindu mythology. The fourth Ram is the primeval Sat Parush, the Supreme Being, the formless God. Call him Sat Parush, Ram, or call him Naam. Ram and Naam are one. Both are mutually indistinguishable. Satguru's sound current reveals this wisdom. There is a Lord Rama of Hindu mythology. There is the self, the astral self, and of course the ultimate name for Ram, the ultimate usage, according to Sant Dariya Sahib, of the name Ram, is to refer to the formless Supreme Being, the true God, above gods of mythology, the true formless Supreme Being. In the Dadu Panth, they use the term Satya-Raam, or true God, to distinguish this formless God called Ram from other Rams used in the Hindu scriptures, whose names may turn up in various Hindu scriptures. The true spirit of Simran practice is Bhakti. Simran is a term which means remembrance, the spiritual practice of remembering or being mindful of God by repeating His name. Devotees sing or chant various names for God. Higher spirituality and more within is the practice of manas jap, the mental repetition of God's name or names with the tongue of thought, quote unquote. In other words, chanting names of God within one's mind is a higher practice than vocally singing those names out loud. The Sants have always placed much greater emphasis upon mental Simran or manas jap over vocal chant or singing. There is, however, more to Simran than the repeating of sacred names. Simran must be approached with the right attitude, the right spirit. For one's intent determines how successful the practice will be and what effect it will have upon the consciousness of the one doing Simran. Simran has never been intended to be a dry or lifeless mantra practice, a tedious repetition, going through the motions automatically. The path of the Sants of India is a Bhakti path, a path of love and devotion for the Supreme Being. Thus, the true masters have always instructed their students to repeat God's name or names with love and devotion, as a lover calling out to one's beloved, the Lord of Love. And that's a very important fundamental teaching about the correct practice of Simran in Sant Mat. It is not to be a tedious, boring, repetitive, sort of dry practice, but a practice done with love, in a spirit of love, or bhakti, as the saints say. And then it's like a different word. It has a different effect upon you and your meditation, your success in meditation, than approaching that name as a dry repetition, a magic word to get results, quote unquote. That will take you to the darkness or take you nowhere at all. But repeating God's name with love, love is the key that unlocks the door to the kingdom of heaven. As Guru Kabir once said, keep your mind ever engrossed in the name of the Supreme Lord, as the lover's mind is ever engrossed in his beloved. He never forgets her for a single moment. Through the day and night he remembers her. Happiness rests in ever-repeated Simran. Sorrow and suffering is removed by Simran. Kabir declares with utmost force and clarity, practice this Simran and be one with God. What then is the practice of the name? It is a form of interior prayer by which a person learns to keep his or her attention always in the Supreme Being, in every circumstance and situation, at all moments, throughout the day and night. It is a form of inner remembrance that leads to a heightened awareness beyond the limitations of the physical world and the portals of death. Through meditation on the name, or naam bhakti, one learns to draw one's attention away from the outer world through the practice of Simran. So Simran is done not only during meditation, but it is a spiritual exercise or technique that one can do throughout the day, walking down the aisle of a store while shopping. You're not chanting it out loud, so there's no weirdness factor, chanting a word that others overhear. It's just something you do in your mind, so you can always keep coming back to it again and again to recenter yourself whenever you feel off-center or stressed in some way. You can always return to your sacred name or names and refocus again. So it's a way to get back some of that bliss of meditation wherever you are, in whatever state of consciousness you're in, the waking state, the dream state, or the meditation state. The Simran of God's name will lead one to the true name, the sound of God. The repetition of holy names is the truest spiritual technique. An uninterrupted inner repetition of holy names given by a living master has to be practiced daily with love, devotion, and one-pointed attention. One thereby transcends one's body and is transported to the realms of light in meditation. The repetition develops into an ever-going spontaneous process, and one catches the unceasing inner music which takes one to its source and reveals God face to face. One is, therefore, exhorted to search daily for the source of this unstruck music. Whatever one does and wherever one happens to be, one is asked to be a sacrifice unto His name, do everything in God's name, and have an ardent longing to behold Him and to hear His voice. One repeats God's name in meditation, in Surat Shabd Yoga meditation practice, until you reach the sound current. And then you focus on that divine sound, which is a higher form of God's name, a truer manifestation of God's name, an eternal name of God ringing in the heavens that repeats itself. Sant Oroia-el says, "From within, the indwelling Lord Himself tells me, the repetition of my name alone is true, all else is delusion. The name, the essential truth of the three worlds alone, is beneficial, O Dadu. With discrimination repeated exclusively day and night, O mind. At every breath be devoted to it, and thy beloved will meet thee one day. Repetition is the path leading to bliss. Thus hath the Master revealed. Be dedicated to God moment by moment, even if thou art to lose thy life. No other way is there to support the self." One repeats God's name, goes on Simran breaks from time to time throughout the day and the evening, as a spiritual exercise to spiritualize life itself, to have a piece of meditation, a little bit of that meditation bliss, on demand, anytime. And you repeat the name of God or various names of God during your meditation practice. It's the first rung of the spiritual ladder. It's the first practice of meditation in the Sant tradition, to focus the mind, to draw you within by the mental repetition, or mana's jap, of sacred names. It takes you within and makes it possible to concentrate at the third eye center, and from there experience the divine light. From the divine light, getting established in the divine light, it becomes possible to ascend further within and hear the divine sound. Says Dadu Dial, repeat the name with the pang of separation and sing its glory with love and devotion. Fix thy mind in repetition with joy and dedication. While speaking or listening, giving or talking, eating or drinking, repeat the name of God at all times, O Dadu. Thus shalt the self rest in the inner lotus. Or repeat the name as often as you can, throughout the day and night and during meditation. It's like a one-word prayer, and the answer to that prayer is God Himself. It's practicing the presence of God through Simran, the repetition of names of God. You're hearing Spiritual Awakening Radio. After the break, we'll dive into the mystic poetry of one of my favorite, all-time favorite, ultimate favorite Sants of India, mystics of the East, Sant Namdev. Stay tuned for more Spiritual Awakening Radio coming up. The mystic poetry of Sant Namdev today on Spiritual Awakening Radio. I want to repeat those verses from earlier. O Nama, the Lord will make the pupil of your eye His home, and your eye will expand to contain the entire universe. Says Namdev. Simran words, sacred names that masters use as part of their initiations, vary from place to place, from time to time, from century to century. So not everyone is repeating the same 5 secret names, or not all the same mantra everywhere and over time. The mantra Kabir initiated people with might be very different from the mantra used by Tulsi Sahib of Hathras, India, centuries later. But one of the most popular, most often used sentences, the most popular refrain in the mystic poetry and hymns of the Sants is, repeat God's name. Those names vary, but they all refer to the true God beyond God, or God above God. The God who is spirit and truth, the God who is formless and beyond this material universe. The formless Supreme Being in the highest of heavens, the Most High God. Given many names: formless, Anami or nameless, Lord of the soul, ocean of love, true original being or Sat Purush. Many different names for the one God. So, in various collections of Sant poetry, you'll find different names used, but they all refer to the one God. Ek Onkar Sat Nam. There is one God. Truth is His name. Repeat the name of Ram. Repeat Waheguru. Repeat the name Radha-Swami. Repeat Vitala's name. Repeat Govinda's name. Repeat Hari's name. Repeat Satya-Raam's name, say the saints. Sant Namdev was born in 1270 and passed on 1350. Some of his mystic verses are included in the Sikh scriptures known as the Adi Granth or Guru Granth. There is also a collection known as the Shri Namdev Gathas, and a beautiful collection of mystic verses called the Hindi Padavali of Namdev. The sacred Simran mantra name Ram, used by Namdev as a name for the formless Supreme Lord of Love, appears often in the mystic verses of not only Namdev, but also Kabir The name Ram turns up also in the Adi Granth, in the hymns of Rai Das, also known as Ravi Das, Dadu Dayal of Rajasthan, and countless other Sants of India. It is the power of love or prem and devotion or bhakti that brings the wandering mind back to focus or pratyahara, and holds one's attention at the third eye center during meditation. One is permeated by love, repeating God's name or names, beholding the light within. During meditation and during bhajan, listening to the inner sound during meditation, also considered an act of worship in traditional Sant Mat mysticism. Words of God Bhakti, light and love from Sant Namdev. From the Hindi Padavali of Namdev, translated by the Dutch scholar Winid Colivort, published in India, in Delhi by Motilal Banarsidass Books. The name Ram, the name God, has entered my heart, placing a golden scale within. I worship only God within, nothing else, says Namdev. Love of Ram is difficult, till you see the self pervading everything. Your fine exterior, filthy within, cannot be washed with water, idiot. God is no idol. Namdev does not worship in this manner. False worship cannot please Ram. It may fool the shallow and the blind. My eyes have turned inward. My heart clings to the feet of Ram, says Namdev. Who can be tainted once he repeats the name Ram? Sinners become pure when they cry Ram. Those who live in the truth of Ram, those who live in the truth of God, should they fast or visit holy sites? One can interpret Namdev's sarcasm there as, no, we don't need to do those things. The human body is transformed into the real holy site through meditation and repeating God's name. We don't need to go anywhere except within. Says Namdev, in remembrance I found the right thing to do. They will surely find moksha, or liberation, those who say Ram. The Guru's word, the Master's word, is a stairway to heaven, where sweet love flows. Says Sant Namdev, I wandered through the cosmos in search of the treasure, but found it within me. Mystic poetry of Sant Namdev, and we're just getting started. After the break, more mystic poetry of Namdev. You're hearing Spiritual Awakening Radio. Stay tuned. The mystic poetry of Sant Namdev today on Spiritual Awakening Radio. I wandered through the cosmos in search of the treasure, but found it within me, says Namdev. Do not come or go. Stay at home and sing of your Ram, says Namdev. I have pleaded with Ram. I shall not ask another. My life grows shorter. I cannot waste another birth. I will not implore another God. My tongue will taste only the elixir of Ram. Namdev's name of God, name for the formless, timeless, Lord of the soul. I will not implore another God. My tongue will taste only the elixir of God. God, or Ram, is within everyone, whether a worm or a moth, moving or still. Ram is my life. Other gods are empty and useless, says Namdev. The repetition of Ram reminds me of an Indian classical instrument known as the tambura. Ram, 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 Ram. Sometimes the saints will switch to other names, since they're all interchangeable. Like, for instance, here, Ram is my companion in life and death, Hari, who rescued the drowning creature. Hari, the giver of joy, is always with me. I am immersed in the name of Hari, says Namdev. What can you lose if you sing Ram? What can you lose if you sing Ram, or God? Sing that name, sleeping or walking. Now here, clearly, he is referring to a verbal, audible chanting of the name Ram. There is precedent for that in the Sant tradition. There are some references. Most of the time in the Sant tradition, meditation is done using a sacred name mentally, as Swami Vyasanand has said in his teachings, that the mental repetition of a name of God, or manas jap, has 1,000 times more concentration power than verbally chanting a name. But it is also true that there are some references in the mystic poetry of the Sants and in the Sikh scriptures as well, the Guru Granth or Adi Granth, to singing God's name, verbally chanting names of God. There is some precedent for that too. So you don't want to out a secret name before others, but if you're going for a walk in the woods or meditating alone in solitude, a little bit of verbal chanting or singing of a name of God is okay to do. There is an ashram in India where every morning people go there at 6 a.m. and there's a whole hour devoted to chanting the name Radha-Swami. For a whole hour. That's one of the techniques they do. At other times of the day, they'll gather for silent meditation. But that verbal repetition of their sacred name, Radha-Swami, is something they do. And there is precedent for it in the Sant tradition, the classic mystic poetry of the mystics of the East. Says Namdev, what can you lose if you sing Ram? Sing that name, sleeping or walking. This is my message, says Namdev. What you receive is what you desire. Sing the name Ram, the state of nirvana. Your tongue lies idle. What better can it do? Service, worship, remembrance, meditation. All are false without God, says Namdev. Fasts, pilgrimages serve worldly goals. They are empty without faith. These regular fasts are worldly efforts. They are like a ladder, discarded when the citadel is scaled. My heart lies at your feet. You are my refuge, says Namdev. That's interesting to notice also in the mystic poetry of these saints like Namdev. Sometimes their verses go from mystic poetry or hymns to prayers. They'll flip into prayers and will start speaking to God and then revert back to psalms or mystic verses again. You'll find that throughout the teachings of the saints. You'll find that in the Adi Granth. You'll find that in the mystic poetry of Sant Namdev. The Lord has all shapes. He is the master of everything. He lives within all. After the break, I want to explore the wonderful book called Sant Namdev, published by Science of the Soul or the Radha-Swam-e Satsang Bayas, a wonderful anthology of the mystic poetry of Namdev. You're hearing Spiritual Awakening Radio. Stay tuned. The mystic poetry and teachings of Saint Namdev today on Spiritual Awakening Radio. There are very wide differences between the path of Bhakti and the path of metaphysical or supernatural curiosity. In some sort of dark, occult, every day is Halloween, thirst for the supernatural kind of sense. The path of the Masters is very much a path for off-worlders and all about near-death experiences and out-of-body travel or soul travel. But not in a dark, occult, metaphysically obsessed sort of way, but rather the path of love concentrates the mind. One is absorbed, their attention is completely absorbed in meditation through love for the Supreme Being, and that is so much more effective and takes one to a much higher place. So as off-world as it is, as out-of-body as it can be, all about exploring inner space, the kingdom of the heavens, the foundation of the path is love and devotion, Prem and Bhakti. Pierce through the 6 chakras and ascend upwards, says Namdev. Listen to the melody divine arising there. Through the melody, the turbulent mind is quelled. Realize that only thus is thy practice made fruitful. Listen to the heavenly music and attain liberation while still living. It is your music I hear, O Lord. the rhythm of drums, jantar, and veena. The supreme moment has come. The Absolute Being has created a game. The Absolute Being has created a subtle game. Within each body he has concealed himself. No one knows the light of the soul within, but everyone knows the duality of you and me. Even as the earthen pot comes out of clay, so also the Lord manifests through us. The bondage of humankind is the effect of our own actions. Whatever we have done to ourselves. Says Namdev, whatever one thinks, that is what one obtains. If you wish to dwell on the Absolute, you would become immortal. He is free from all impurities, and he has taken abode in me, like fragrance in a flower. None has seen him come. Who can ever know him, O friend? Who can describe him? And who can comprehend him? He pervades all, yet he is without form and shape. Even as the trail of a bird in flight remains unseen, even as the fish swims in water, but its path is invisible, even as the mirage does not exist in the heavens, so also Nama's Lord is beyond perception. Bless me with your love. I do not seek salvation, my Lord. If you do not give your love, I shall give up my life. Though there are millions of obstacles, I shall not leave your love. For countless lives I have wandered from birth to birth. Now at last I have been saved by uttering your name. Says Namdev, you are my very life. You are the ocean, and I, your fish. Says Sant Namdev, how shall I live without you? How shall I live without you? You are the support of my life. How shall I live without you? Your name alone is true. The whole world is false, in thought, word, and deed. Only Naam is of any help in this Kali Yuga age. The veil between you and me is of greed, ego, and lust. Only the rare devotee is liberated, who does the Simran of the unchangeable Lord. Despite the holy scriptures or Vedas, the world is carried away in the stream of attachment. Please take me too across life's stormy ocean, O gracious Lord of Nama. Some mystic poetry from a volume of the Mystics of the East series published by scienceofthesoul.org. One of their volumes is dedicated to the mystic poetry of Sant Namdev. My name is James Bean. You've been hearing Spiritual Awakening Radio. Today, sharing some of my favorite mystic poetry from one of my favorite all-time saints of the Sant tradition of India, Sant Namdev. To say hello, you're enjoying this radio series, send me an email at this address. If you'd like more information on how to get Namdev books in English, you can. Send me an email at this address, james@spiritualawakeningradio.com. james@spiritualawakeningradio.com. You can also send me a text message or leave a message if you like. It's my Google phone number, another inbox, so it's very non-intrusive. Just send a text or message to this number, 508-603-9381. Visit my website, spiritualawakeningradio.com. There is a donate button at the website that goes to a secure PayPal account. There is also a link to Facebook, a link to Twitter, Sant Mat at Twitter, and various sites, social networking sites, podcasts available on demand as well. Visit my website, spiritualawakeningradio.com. Tune in again next week at the same time for another edition of Spiritual Awakening Radio.